Welcome to the most epic birding weekend of the year, the Dutch birding weekend on Texel. 3 days of hardcore bird watching on the Isle with probably the most rare birds ever in the Netherlands. We are going for an as long as possible weekend list, and therefore we have to beat a record of 123 species we got last year. Also, we hope to find the rarest bird of the weekend, because in that case we win a pair of binoculars. Let's go! Hi, I'm the Dutch birder, and 2025 is my 17th year of birding. This year I'm on a quest to document at least 250 different bird species. Join me on my quest through wetlands and forest of the small European country called the Netherlands. We are waiting to board the ferry, and we just got a message that the Bonaparte's gull was foraging behind the ferry on its way from Texel to Den Helder. So hopefully we can pick it up on the way to Texel, because I need some better shots of this species, and also it's nice if we could also count it for a weekend list. When we get up on the deck, someone calls out that the Bonaparte's gull is sitting on the basalt rocks. People start giving descriptions, and I film the gull in question. As the boat starts moving, I throw some breads so the gulls come closer to the boat. With the naked eye, I can actually see the Bonaparte's gull flying past. Later though, it turns out I had my camera pointed at a regular, black-headed gull sitting on the rocks. Once on the island, we quickly stopped by the shed with the barn owl and then headed towards the sea, because today the wind is northwest, and for the rest of the weekend it'll turn southeast. We soon spot the usual suspects: common scoter, red-throated diver and northern gannet. On the beach, some turnstones and sanderlings are walking about, and further out at sea, a few auks are flying by. That's a nickname for razorbills and guillemots. One bird flies quite close and turns out to be a razorbill. Another, a bit further away, already looked like a guillemot in the field, and a video later confirmed it. Notice the pointed bill, the legs sticking out past the tail, and a slightly browner color. There were also lots of divers on the sea, and quite a few flying past. Most were red-throated divers, but we also picked out 2 black-throated divers. Sadly, they were too distant to film, which is a shame. It would have been a new species for the video year list. While enjoying this close-flying gannet off to the side, time for a weekend list update. Just like during the Texel Big Day this spring, here on the left you can see the list of species recorded so far. I won't go through all of them, many are very common, but it gives you an idea of what we've seen on our way to the sea and what's been flying offshore. After about an hour on the island, we're now at 42 species. Short update from the car: it has started raining, so we ended the sea watch. We got some good species like red-throated and black-throated diver, also some gannets, some common scoters, and we got a black-leg kittiwake, so that was nice. For the weekend list, to get a high number, we had hoped for more species, like a common tern or sandwich tern, or maybe Arctic skua. But maybe we can get those another time this weekend. We just heard that the Richard's pipit was refound again, and there's also a kettle egret present on the island. So we hope to pick up both, which would be a great species for the weekend list. In the distance, we spotted a group of cows laying down. And of course, we just had to check for a kettle egret among them. With the naked eye, we could already make out a small white dot, so I aimed the camera, just to be sure. They're always such fun birds to see. We also noticed that the fields were full of thrushes, which is exciting because many years ago, right at this spot, there was a black-throated thrush briefly among the migrating flocks. That's a species I'd really love to see again, especially since it's one that's still missing from my film list. Well, the kettle egrets turned out to be pretty easy. And then we saw some other birders who pointed out some flyover geese, and they turned out to be pink-footed geese, which I haven't filmed for the year list. But they flew too low and flew behind some trees, so I couldn't film them sadly. Hopefully I'll get another chance this weekend. When we got to the dike, the Richard's pipit wasn't in sight. 2 other birders told us where it had flown off to. We soon relocated the bird ourselves, and before I knew it, a whole group of birders had gathered behind me, also coming to twitch the bird. It was a tricky one, walking through the vegetation, and many people just couldn't get a view of it. I did my very best to get the bird back in view for the others, but one grumpy birder didn't appreciate it. He complained that we were getting too close, while the bird was incredibly tame, and we were keeping plenty of distance. We just wanted to help everyone see it, and of course not scare it off. Currently sitting out a rain shower. The rain lasted longer than expected, so we headed for the Bird Information Center, because Willem, after 17 years, finally decided to retire his old binoculars and buy a new pair. After a lovely cup of hot chocolate and an explanation about the binoculars that, honestly, took way too long, I just wanted to get back into the field as soon as possible. Our next stop was the cream-colored courser field. It was absolutely packed there. The entire platform was filled with birders, not least because a ragneck phalarope was present. It's a species that's been regularly seen during the Dutch birding weekend in recent years. We checked to see if there were any other interesting birds around, and I spotted, among others, this preening common snipe. The ragneck phalarope was found quickly too, and in the same corner there was also a little grebe, saving us some searching elsewhere on the island. So Willem has bought a new pair of binoculars, and after that we went to the north tip of the island because a redneck phalarope was present on a cream-colored courser field. We got that. We also got little grebe and a great wagtail flying overhead. And we're now heading for the spectacled eider, and we also hope we get some extra species like snow bunting and Slavonian grebe. The spectacled eider was soon in view, but it was swimming north at quite a pace. While we went in pursuit, suddenly 2 snow buntings flew up right in front of us. I quickly started filming, since this was a new species for the video year list. They were tricky birds to film, constantly moving around or walking away from me, so the camera sometimes focused on a rock instead of the birds, leaving the buntings out of focus. So yeah, it took a bit of time to get some sharp clips. I wasn't the only one interested in the snow buntings. A few brave souls decided to lie down on the stomachs to photograph them. And with the earlier rain showers, the ground was still pretty wet. Then it was back to the spectacled eider. The bird was still heading north, but also closer to shore, making it easier to film. Since this was rediscovered about a week ago, it had already molted quite a bit towards its breeding plumage, which it will have again in a few weeks. The bird was snorkeling now and then, but didn't catch anything while we were watching. Further out on the Wadden Sea, we also saw some red-breasted mergansers and many black-necked grebes, but we couldn't find the reported Slavonian grebes. While enjoying the footage of this beautiful duck, time for another weekend list update. We're now at 79 species, including quite a few that we didn't have last year, such as the Bonaparte's gull, but also black-throated diver, razorbill, great grey shrike and pink-footed goose. A wee deer flying past the car was also a nice bonus. Lovely to see the spectacled eider again, now in eclipse plumage, so not as beautiful as it was when I first saw it, but then it was very far out and now it's pretty close, so that's nice. We also got word that the Bonaparte's gull is now steady in the ferry harbour of Texel, so that will be our next target. Well, it turned out the Bonaparte's gull had taken the ferry back to Den Helder. So we dipped it and we decided to go check some bushes for birds while waiting for the ferry to return to Texel and hopefully bring with it the Bonaparte's gull. But now one olive-backed pipit have been reported, and that's a species I really would like to film. So what to do? Wait for the Bonaparte's gull or head for the olive-backed pipit? And I also have to find Willem, because he is also wandering about somewhere here. In the end, we decided to wait for the ferry to return, just in case. Unfortunately, the Bonaparte's gull didn't show up again. We didn't want to wait any longer, hoping to still have a chance to film the olive-backed pipits. Well, it turned out the olive-backed pipit was foraging on the ground and was flushed, then flew into the canopy of a tree, and there it was photographed, but after that it was out of sight. It could be anywhere between the vegetation here on the ground, so we have to hope that it will get flushed again, cools, and then sits on a branch or something. That would give me an opportunity to film it, but otherwise, slim chances. The birds have been found in a pine forest with fern undergrowth west of the goal. Typical habitat for the species, but very tricky to relocate. We searched the entire patch of forest, but there was no sign of any olive-backed pipits. After a long search, we decided to call it a day and try for the little bunting near the robbenjager before dinner. Well, the olive-backed pipit was a dip, sadly. We've now returned to the north tip of the island because a little bunting has been refound here. And we also want to get something to eat on the north tip, so we can combine those things nicely. But sadly, the little bunting was flushed and landed somewhere in the shrubs, so we have to search it again. The bird was quickly refound in these small bushes.
Ja, ik zie de takken bewegen hier aan deze kant van het bosje. Ik zie de vogel niet, maar ik zie de tak bewegen. Ja, hier, vlieg naar links. Voor ons, jullie naar rechts.
And a bit later it was foraging between the dunes. It was very tame, sneaking around like a mouse through the vegetation. Not easy to capture on video. But after a while I managed to get a short clip, and we decided it was finally time for some food. After dinner we traditionally headed to the eilandse house for the sightings log and a tag plan by Vincent Stork and a story by Wim Wigand about 40 years of Dutch birding weekends. For day 2 we decided to start at the southern end of the island. Even in autumn, during the early morning twilight, you can hear lots of birds calling and sometimes even singing. Here, a beautiful scene of a great egret is stunning morning light. At the parking lot, a whole group of young birders had gathered. They were about to search the horse, the southernmost tip of the island. And when such a large group of sharp-eyed birders enters an area, it's always nice to be nearby. They might just find that black-faced bunting. We enjoyed the views over the horse miniatures, with among others a group of golden eyes, and of course no barrows among them. But we also couldn't find the pipe-billed grebe. We scanned the eastern pond and saw the previously reported female scaup swimming there. A nice addition to the weekend list. Good morning on day 2 of the Dutch birding weekend. Willem and I decided to start off the day at the south side of the island. And before we got on the way we already had some good species like water rail, peregrine falcon and kingfisher. And we also got a female greater scaup, so that's nice. We just got word that the Bonaparte's gull is now sitting in the Mokbai, which is on Texel, so that will be our next destination. In the bushes there were lots of birds, mainly tits, finches and robins. This wren posed nicely for a moment. Plenty of thrushes were feasting on the berry-rich shrubs. Last year we didn't have a single field fair all weekend, but since this year's weekend was a bit later in October, there were plenty around. And of course the place was teeming with redwings. Unfortunately, unlike last year, we couldn't find a ringozzel among them. And secretly you always hope to spot something like a black-throated or dusky thrush, or maybe even something rarer. This robin was still singing beautifully in the background. Next stop, the Mokbai.
Hé, ik heb een zwarte rotgans. Oh, dat is een goeie. Aan de overkant zwemt de zwarte rotgans.
A beautiful sight, among all the other birds and a few Brandt geese, this stunning black Brandt. Not new for the video year list, because in the previous episode you saw me filming one in the last light on Schiermonnikoog. Another nice moment, this spoonbill, taking a moment to preen before heading off to feed again. Great start to the morning. We got almost every target we wanted here on the south side of the island. Couldn't find any black-tailed godwit or spotted redshank, but I don't know if this is the spot for them or maybe we have to look somewhere else for those species. But we did find a black brant ourselves, which is always nice. Probably won't win us the binoculars, but it's a nice species to find. Our next target will be the Richard's pipit again, and also the great grey shrike, which is nearby, and which I still need to film for my year list. A species I tried for in winter once, but never found. So if I could get it now, it would save me a search later this year. We also decided to check a new area, Schipholsnol, a part of Texel where we had never been before. It was a bit disappointing. A small path wound up and down along the dunes, but there wasn't much of a viewpoint. We couldn't find the shrike, though it could easily still have been around. At a nearby garden, a yellow-browed warbler had been seen. We waited there for a while, but without success. And we didn't want to spend too much time on it either. Possibly the same peregrine falcon we saw in the morning over the Mokbai came flying by here again and landed in this mast. Honestly, my best footage ever of the species. Though, to be fair, I've never really spent much time filming it before. The Richard's pipit was thankfully still there, and this time it was much easier to see than yesterday, when it mostly stayed hidden in the vegetation. The bird moved in a very unpredictable way, sometimes suddenly turning back the other direction. That made it quite difficult to get a steady shot where the bird was visible for more than a few seconds. Still, I really like this clip, where you can see both the birders and the pipit in the same frame. Well, the Richard's pipit really cooperated, so got some great shots of it. Couldn't find the great grey shrike sadly, and also we still haven't found a yellow-browed warbler. But a Pallas's warbler has been found on the north tip of the island, so that will be our next destination. As we were driving north, we got word that the Pallas's leaf warbler hadn't been seen again since its discovery. So we decided to take care of another formality first. The purple sandpipers at the end of the island's dam. Also a New Year species for me. We parked near the lighthouse and walked along the beach towards the dam, where there were also a few rock pipits around. Because it was quite windy, I decided to get a bit lower to the ground for more stability. Here, a zoomed out shot first. Do you spot a purple sandpiper here? In this next shot, it's much easier to see. And notice how it looks less contrasty than the turnstones, which is actually something you can recognize even from a great distance. We just got an alert that on the south side of the island a Gyrfalcon is circling there. Oh, that's a mega. We already got one on Texel like 2 years ago, I believe. But I didn't get good footage of it. So we're rushing to the south side of the island. Let's go! Just to give you an idea, this is where we were when the bird was reported. And this is where it was seen. It flew north along the coastline. And there are several beach access points where we could possibly pick it up again. At Westerslag, near Pole 15, there are usually some birders around, so that became our reference point. If the bird was reported there, we'd head to Ekomare. Otherwise, we'd set up at Pole 15.
Nou?
Ja, dat is hem denk ik hoor.
You got it!
The bird kept circling around Pole 15 for quite a while, and Willem was constantly getting calls from one birder after another. We kept everyone updated, directing them towards Ekomare. But then, the bird suddenly shot off north at full speed. Luckily, later on, things would turn out well for everyone. But more on that later. Incredible! What a weekend this turns out to be. After the Gyrfalcon, we decided to go to the ferry harbor on the Texel side for the Bonaparte's gull, which I still need some good footage of. And Willem also wanted to have some coffee, so after we bought him a coffee, I waited in the harbor because the Bonaparte's gull wasn't present. Willem decided to search for some songbirds in bushes, while I stayed and waited. And with the next ferry, there was the Bonaparte's gull. Got it flying, got it sitting on the water. Totally happy. Awesome. Our next targets are getting the weekend list above 123 species, and also we want to find a rare bird ourselves. We did find the black brant this morning, but that won't be enough to win the challenge of this weekend, because the Gyrfalcon is of course much rarer. But maybe we will find something rare if we try. Let's go. And here it is, the gull that's been causing all the excitement lately. A tiny, ultra-rare American gull, which at first glance looks a lot like a black-headed gull, but with bubblegum pink legs, a black bill and completely white underwings. The Bonaparte's gull soon tried to leave the harbor again, heading back out to watch the Mars Deep. But luckily I still had some bread left from the ferry trip on Friday. I quickly tossed some pieces out, which attracted the black-headed gulls, and that in turn brought the Bonaparte's gull right back in. It worked twice, but the third time the bird didn't fall for it and flew off, disappearing from view. A bit too soon for the incoming twitchers. Fortunately for them, the bird returned later and stayed in the Texel harbor for a while. Let's also take a look at how the weekend list is doing now. The total stands at 113 species, just 10 to go to match last year's record. Still plenty of time and lots of species that are well within reach. Along the way from south to north and back again, we also picked up a few new species, like a first greater white-fronted geese and several sparrowhawks. Our plan was to head north again. We still wanted to try for the olive-back pipits once more, and there were also shorelarks reported in the Slufter that we hadn't visited yet. That definitely had to be done, since they were still missing from the year list. On the way, we got word that a Gyrfalcon was now showing on a nearby field. We made a quick pit stop at the information center de Marel, but still managed to arrive in time for the spectacle that was unfolding. The Gyrfalcon had stolen a wood pigeon from a buzzard and was now plucking and eating it at a decent distance. Hundreds of birders had gathered by now, and while my camera was pointed at the falcon, I decided to film the whole crowd as well. You know, just one of those fun moments to look back on later. Couldn't have wished for a better view, so we left the site and headed into the Slufter. In this area you are allowed to wander freely in part of the reserve. We walked as far as we were permitted and saw plenty of birds: cormorants, gulls, waders, ducks and herons. But we were mainly after the smaller birds hiding behind this rope. Out of a maximum count of 18 birds reported earlier, only 2 shorelarks were still present. But that was enough for a New Year tick. Now, a shorelark is really just a formality when you're doing a year list. But earlier this year I simply didn't have the time, since I had to focus on the rarer species for this year list challenge. The birds here were busily feeding on the sea lavender seeds. We finally found some time to visit the shorelarks present in the Slufter. And on our way back we thought now it's a good time to head into the forest, because we still need red crossbills. I need them even for my year list. Well, then a message came through that a Pallas's warbler of the North Tip was showing well. So that will be our next target. But after that we got an alert of 2 olive-backed pipits and about the same forest as they were seen yesterday. So that will be our next target, because that is a species I really would like to film. We think it's going to be a dip again, but we'll try nonetheless. And apparently we weren't the only ones with the same idea. Because once we entered the forest, we noticed something else. The massive tip migration that was still going on. A cold-tit was foraging, a bird that in most years is extremely rare or even completely absent on the island, and one that had never managed to film properly, until now. So once again, my best footage ever of a species during this weekend. I was just busy filming a cold-tit, because that's the species I don't have good footage of yet, when another alert came in that one of the olive-backed pipits has been seen briefly. So we're hot footing there now. Well, we did finally hear and also see the olive-backed pipit, but didn't get any chance of getting some footage. It's also getting dark now, so I think we have to save that for tomorrow, sadly. One last time the bird flew overhead, calling, but unfortunately we couldn't relocate it. Good morning guys, on the third day of the Dutch birding weekend. We are now walking into the forest again for the olive-backed pipit, to hopefully get it on film. But we first got some good species on the north tip of the island, like the Pallas's warbler and black redstart. So I'll tell you that first, and then we're gonna search for the olive-backed pipit. That morning we started at the northern tip, thinking that since the wind had been blowing from the south since halfway through the previous day, and with an airstream coming all the way up from Spain, combined with late October, that often means one thing: pallet swift. And where better to look for one than at the northern point. While keeping an eye on the sky for the swift, we also checked the area where the Pallas's leaf warbler had been seen. It was still quite dim, but soon we saw a flash of yellow fly past, the rump of a Pallas's. The footage isn't great because of the low light, but still another year tick. And since I already have good shots of this species, no need to chase it further. It quickly became clear that the tip migration from the day before was still going strong, with flocks of dozens of birds moving southwards along the eastern bushes. Next stop was the lighthouse area, where we found a hoped for black redstart, and again saw lots of blue tits. Our final spot at the northern tip for now was the harbour of Sil near the Cockstorp, a good place for black-tailed Godwit. The water level was quite high, but with some patience we spotted plenty of waders. We did manage to pick out 2 Godwits, but we couldn't find the spotted redshank, which we were still missing for the weekend. Still, those Godwits brought us to a new weekend record, 124 species. So in the end, no pallet swift. But you can imagine I wasn't exactly surprised when later that week a pallet swift was indeed seen flying around the lighthouse. The prediction was right. It was just that half a day and one night weren't quite enough time for the species to get there yet. Still, the sky was here filled with flocks of blue tits. Well, the olive-backed pipit has been heard again at the same spot it was yesterday in the afternoon. And there are a lot of birders searching, so hopefully with a joint effort we can locate it and get some clear views of it. But what a tricky bird this is. And now, back to where I left off, the forest near the Koog. While searching, we occasionally heard small groups of crossbills flying overhead. At one point, the birds actually landed in some pines right in front of us, but I just couldn't get them on camera. Every time I pointed my lens at one, it flew off again. Frustrating, since it was another New Year species. After the whole group have moved on a bit further, I decided to search for them myself. By carefully listening to the crackling sounds they made while feeding, I managed to track them down again, and could finally add another species to the year list. You could really see the hierarchy among the crossbills here. The female was being chased off quite aggressively. Well, in 2.5 hours of searching, we only heard the olive-backed pipit once flying over, and we thought we had a good idea where it landed, but after searching with quite a number of people, still couldn't find it. What a frustrating bird. Did get red crossbills from a year list, however, so that was nice. We are now going to twitch a white-bellied Brandt goose, because that counts as a separate species in the Netherlands, and both Willem and I still need it for a year list. Typical for the Dutch birding weekend is that even a species like the white-bellied Brandt goose can draw a lot of attention, which actually makes it easier to get footage, since there's almost always someone who already has the bird in view. That definitely saves time. This time, too, we got a tip about where the bird was roughly located, but it happened to be down in the ditch, so we had to wait a bit until it showed itself again and we could move on. A little further, near Wagiot, another rare bird was around, a species we had already seen earlier this year, and again we got the bird served on a silver platter. Nearby there was also a huge flock of geese, among which this Canada goose stood out. The dark-chest immediately ruled out the feral large subspecies, and also the wild Hutchins form of the cackling goose. Given its size, just a bit smaller than the white-fronted goose, it must have been one from the feral population of escaped cackling geese, so a category C species, which would actually count for my English challenge, if it weren't for the fact that we had already seen the Hutchins cackling goose earlier this year, which belongs to the same species. Before the weekend started, we had planned to visit some more hidden spots, places where most visitors of the island never go. One of those spots is the Green Hell, a narrow path with dense vegetation on both sides, situated between the Gull and the Western Horsemeertje. Typically, while we were birding at the south side of the island, a grey shrike has been reported, it is Slufter, and it could be a steppe grey shrike, so it will be a great species to film and add to our year list. So we don't take our chances and head back to the car and head that way. Hopefully we will see the shrike. When we arrived in the Slufter, we saw groups of birders standing around, looking a bit dazed. The steppe grey shrike had passed through the area quickly and was now lost somewhere near the coast. But the Gyrfalcon was still showing occasionally, and even a white-tailed eagle flew overhead. I suggested we walk the entire long dam and try to scan the area from the dunes. In the worst case, we'd at least get to see the Gyrfalcon from a closer distance. Joop and Benjamin joined us, and with the four of us we started the long walk. Once we reached the dune at the end of the trail, we still hadn't seen either the steppe grey shrike or the Gyrfalcon, but that changed rather quickly for the latter. The falcon took off from the beach and landed on a post right in front of us, still at a fair distance though. Every now and then, some birds with a lot of white in the wing took off, but they always turned out to be chaffinches, until Benjamin suddenly shouted, "I've got something white." Jokingly, I asked whether it was actually a bird, which was immediately confirmed, followed by the words, "This is it, right?"
Got it! Yes!
And indeed, there it was, the steppe grey shrike, not even that far away. At that moment, a lot of things go through my mind. I want to film the bird, but I also know there are still many people in the Slufter who haven't seen it yet. So I first aimed the camera, hit record, and started sending out a few quick messages in the Texel group chat, telling everyone the bird is in view and where exactly to find it. After a few back and forth messages describing the location, finally the message comes in. The bird is also being seen from the Slufter. We definitely don't want to risk flushing it, so that people in the Slufter would miss their chance. So I added the converter first, but then the bird moved on its own, a little deeper into the bushes on our side. Moments later it took off again, and seemed to fly further towards the coast. We went searching, and soon found it again, a little further on, but still within the same area. And now it was much closer, and the sun breaks through as well. How good does that feel? I'll talk more about the identification of this species and its occurrence in the Netherlands in one of my upcoming rarity update videos. I sent out another message, asking whether anyone's planning to walk the long dam so we could keep the bird in view for them. Pretty soon I got replies. Several groups of birders are on their way, so we wait a bit longer. Unfortunately, before most of them arrive, the bird disappears deep into a bush and later flies towards the Slufter, where it's only visible from a great distance. In the end, the weekend list finishes at 131 species, an improvement of 8 compared to last year's record. And that's even without seeing a few near certainties, like tree sparrow or yellow-browed warbler. That really says it all. What a weekend it was. The sun is setting, and that means the end of the Dutch birding weekend here on Texel. Probably one of the best weekends ever, with megas like the Gyrfalcon and the steppe grey shrike. I hope you liked this video. Please leave a comment if you were also here on the island and leave a like. And if this is your first video here, then please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.